Welcome to the Paranormal Stakeout radio TV show with Larry Lawson. As a former career law enforcement officer and law enforcement educator, Larry focuses on the use of tried and true law enforcement investigative techniques in conducting paranormal investigations. Despite his experience and training, Larry also keeps an open mind to discussions on topics that deal with evidence that are not quite as physical in nature. Paranormal Stakeout guests are professionals in the field of the paranormal and parapsychology, conducting the investigations and research needed to further the cause of paranormal study. Larry advocates an agenda of standardization of structure and training in the field of paranormal investigation and research for the purpose of one day being able to produce the evidence needed to convince a jury of the existence of the paranormal. Whether it is ghosts, UFOs, unsolved mysteries, hauntings or cryptids, no topic is beyond the investigative reach of Larry Lawson and the Paranormal Stakeout radio TV show team. Now, here is the host of the Paranormal Stakeout radio TV show, Larry Lawson.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Paranormal Stakeout. I'm your host, Larry Lawson, coming to you from beautiful Vero Beach, Florida, the headquarters for the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation and Indian River Hauntings. That's my little organization that works down here. If you're interested in learning more about us, you can check us out at paranormalfbi.com or indianriverhauntings.com. We also have some stuff on YouTube at Indian River Hauntings 2341, and you can check more of my shows right here on the X Zone Radio and TV network at paranormalstakeout.org. And if you'd like to drop me a line just to say hello, let me know what you think. Maybe you have some questions you'd like to answer. Get a hold of me at ghostguy at paranormalstakeout.org, and I'll be glad to read your questions or thoughts right here at the beginning of each show. So really glad you're here. This is our first show for 2024. Really excited to be back again this year. Hope everybody had a very blessed holiday season, and hope everybody was safe, and let's make 2024 the best. Now, my guest tonight, been looking forward to having her on. She is a writer. She is a media personality. She is a storyteller, and of course she's a paranormal investigator. Kim MOSER comes to us from Canada, and since 2018, when she began writing and telling paranormal stories on her podcast, she became even more interested and later became a paranormal investigator. Since then, she's had extensive amount of experience and has traveled all over, including a lot of spots here in the States. Some of those spots includes the Waverly Hills Sanatorium. We've all heard of that. The Conjuring House, Lizzy Borden House, Lafittes Blacksmith Shop, the Witch House in Salem, and a place that's near and dear to me, the St. Augustine Lighthouse, which was where it all began for me. So with that, I'd like to welcome Kim MOSER to Paranormal Stakeout. Kim, welcome.
Hi, Larry. How you doing? Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Real excited about that. It must be cold up there right now.
It is. Yeah, there's snow on the ground.
Well, it was cold here today. I think we hit 65. So,
oh, wow. I feel so sorry for you.
I've got to take those digs where I can. At any rate, tell us a little bit about yourself. You've got really an interesting background. You really didn't have experiences, or did you, as a child?
I actually did have a few small experiences, but it was more of like a little scary experience, nothing that was super profound, nothing that I sort of saw a misty white figure with my eyes. I was always very much a dreamer, and I would have extremely vivid dreams. And then in my early 20s, my grandmother wasn't expected to pass away, but she passed away. And the night that she did, I had a very vivid dream about her, and she was telling me that she was going. And it was so vivid that I could see her perfectly. She was wearing her favorite outfit. I could smell her. I touched her. And that was pretty much it. She was just gone. And so when I woke up, I was obviously very distressed. And my partner at the time was like, just go back to bed. You had a bad dream. I'm like, no, I really think she's gone. And so I managed to get back to sleep. And very early in the morning, my mother called me to let me know that her mother had passed away. And I said, Mom, you're not going to believe this, but you know me in my dreams. And she said, yeah. And I said, I had a dream about her last night and she was telling me that she was going. And she said, well, that's really interesting. When did you have the dream? And I said, well, it was sometime between 2:15 and 2:30. And she said, well, that's the last time that somebody went to check on her, when she was alive at 2:15 and when she had passed at 2:30. So she said, I really wish I would have had a dream like that. And I said, I know. I don't know why you didn't. And I did, why I was the special one. So anyway, that kind of really intrigued me, and I wanted to know a lot more about what happens after you die. So I just started diving into books and really got into the topic, and then lived a pretty regular life for the next 15 years or so, and was in sales. I sold food, I sold Coca-Cola, I sold a whole bunch of stuff like that. And then my last sales job, I was selling forklifts. And I was like, this is not my passion. What's my passion? So my best friend and I decided we'd start a podcast, which was called Booze and Bourbon. I got the sticker still on this microphone right there. And that just kind of spiraled. So we got to travel to the States for some small investigations. And then it wasn't too much longer after that that a local television series reached out and they said, hey, we're looking for some new investigators. Do you think you'd be interested? And I'm like, of course I would be. So I started on that. And then within a couple of months, I was the production manager for the show. And I continued that for 6 seasons. And now I'm a director. So I don't just direct, paranormal spooky stuff. I direct some series that have to do with antique cars as well as fashion in Atlantic Canada. So I'm pretty diverse. And now what I'm doing is I'm doing paranormal investigations on YouTube with a couple of my friends, Lamar and Chelsea. So that's been really fun. We have been traveling to the States as well. Since I sent you that little summary of places that I've been to, we spent a lot of time in New York and Ohio too. So we just had some really great experiences there.
I gotta ask where you were at in Ohio. That happens to be my original stomping grounds.
Oh, really?
Was
Well, we
it?
went to the Fairfield County Infirmary, which was
Mhm.
probably the most active place I've ever been to. I saw so many things that I never ever thought I would see. And then where else did we go in Ohio? Oh, a place called Father John's, and it used to be a monastery, and then
Mhm.
this guy ended up turning it into a brewery. And there's a crypt in the floor of the dining room of the brewery. And they think that might be why it's haunted. But also, the owner of this place has traveled the world. He's really into religious relics. So he has sort of a mix of like Buddhist relics and Christian
Interesting.
relics. And people think that maybe there's sort of some residual hauntings because of all of the artifacts that are there.
Mm. Interesting. Did you go to Mansfield State
No, we
before?
didn't.
Oh,
There's so many
uh,
places in Ohio. I was completely blown away. I was like, we need to go back.
so you've obviously delved into the field pretty heavily now, and you're obviously attending a lot of spots, and we're going to get to St. Augustine eventually here. Other than your experience that you had with your grandma, which is profound, and I think that whole dream issue is something that is not investigated deeply enough. What did you do to prepare yourself to become an investigator after telling the stories? And I'd love to know where booze and bourbon came from. That's an interesting title. But what did you do to prepare yourself and get yourself ready to actually begin investigating?
Well, I kind of did a little bit with the podcast. We just did very like kind of rudimentary types of investigations. We had some voice recorders and a K2 meter, and we would go to, small little areas here around where I live in Nova Scotia and just kind of check them out and see what was going on. And we ended up getting some pretty interesting stuff, things that correlated to the stories that we knew, or things
Okay.
that were kind of correlating to the time. So we'd get back in the car and we'd realize that we still had one of the devices going, and it said like, you need to park here, and we're like, "Whoa, we just got in the car, that's kind of cool." So we were already a little bit intrigued by the whole thought of investigating. And then I really didn't have any experience on television until I was on the show. And there were some other investigators on the show too. So they kind of helped. I mean, I've watched so many paranormal investigative shows too. I think that was like my training and I didn't even realize it.
Mhm.
But really just kind of tapping into the space, doing some sort of like protection rituals of some way, shape, or form, just kind of, surrounding myself in white light. And I was like, okay, I'm ready for this. But it really wasn't until I would be, isolated in a situation that I was like, I don't think I'm ready for this because I'd be all alone. I'm like, okay, if something happens, if something comes charging at me, who's going to help me? They're really far away. So that's when I was like, maybe I'm a little bit out of my element here. So it took me a couple of years to really kind of get comfortable with being in a space all by myself.
Did you ever get an opportunity? Did anybody offer you the opportunities to actually train you or give you a little bit more formal training in it all? And if not, do you think that would have helped you?
Um, I don't know. I just kind of go with what feels natural to me. There are some people out there that have been a quote unquote mentor for me, and I really didn't like their style. I really didn't like the way that they were maybe antagonizing the spirits if we were talking to a spirit. So I kind of feel like I've developed my own way that feels very natural to me. I've got over 100 investigations under my belt now, so I feel like I might be able to teach a thing or two to someone.
Well, good. And experience is probably the best teacher. Um, you talk about equipment and things like that. Do you use a lot of equipment now?
I do, but the thing that I find with equipment is it's so finicky. Like there's sometimes when it won't go off and it should, or there's times when it goes off and it shouldn't.
Mhm.
So I tend to look at the equipment as sort of something that backs up what I'm feeling. So I wouldn't necessarily classify myself as a medium. I would say that I'm certainly sensitive to
Okay.
certain spaces. So if I'm feeling, the presence of a young woman that might be in despair, and then I have this device spit out words at me that correlate with that, then I'm like, okay, I think maybe we're onto something. So I kind of use it as a little bit of a backup.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's an issue that most folks, well, we really don't know what this phenomenon is. We really don't.
No.
And sometimes we do rely too much on equipment, and our equipment really hasn't changed much in the last 20 years when
No,
you
you're
really
you're
think of.
so right on that.
And that's a big bugaboo of mine is what can we do to push it forward? So, just a thought there. I don't want to get into this just yet because we're about ready to take our first break, but I'm interested in hearing not probably your most significant experience and how you felt after it. Now you've been to the States, you've been to New York, you said, in
Yes,
Ohio, and you've obviously been to Florida. Did you actually investigate in Florida?
I did. It was like a long time ago, so I
Mhm,
definitely didn't have the experience or the equipment that I have now. But
mhm.
yeah, I walked through the whole lighthouse and just kind of really appreciated the history. I guess more so than really did a
Uh,
proper investigation.
and the history is a really important part about what we do, at least in my opinion, because that
I
does
I
tend to
love
correlate.
that. I love the
Yeah.
history. That's probably one of the biggest draws for me going into these older locations.
Well, we'll talk about that and some of the other items on this list that I have in front of me. So, folks, stay with us. We'll be back right after these messages with my guest tonight, Kim Mosier. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back on Paranormal Stakeout with my guest tonight, Kim Mosier. Now, Kim, I want to talk to you about some of these places that you went, but a couple of questions up front, things I like to talk about up front. You'd say in your bio you're somewhat skeptical.
Mhm.
Tell me what you mean by that.
I think it's more or less like I'm the first person who is like, okay, was that a draft? Okay, is there a huge electronic spike in this room for one particular reason? Is it an old fridge? Like I'm always the first person to kind of be the naysayer, and then when
Mm-hmm.
something continuously happens in the space, I'm like, okay, now I'm going to think about it. And there's even sometimes when I go home after an investigation and I'm like, no, I really didn't feel that one. Maybe ghosts aren't real. And then I'll go to the next location and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm blown away. And
Mhm.
so then, after I sit with it for a little while, then I'm like, okay, maybe I'm back on the train that ghosts are real. But now I'd say I'm more like 75% in the positive of ghosts are being
Okay.
with ghosts being real.
Well, what is when somebody's skeptical? What does that mean to you? I mean, you've explained how you feel, but what is because here's why. We've got folks in this field that every little bump is something paranormal, supernatural.
Right.
Then you've got other folks on the other side of the field. If Abraham Lincoln walked down and walked over, sat down in front of him and said, "Look, dude, this is what's happened on the other side," they still wouldn't believe it, right?
Yeah.
So where do you say about 75 towards believing it? But my question is, why are why why are people why can't folks just take a side? Or why can't they be more open minded? I guess is the question I'm trying to ask. Kind of
Yeah, I
lost
don't
my thought
know.
there.
It's a funny thing. Like, there used to be a joke going around about people who were vegans and they were like, "Don't worry, they'll tell you." Um, and it seems that way with people who are like 100% skeptical. They'll tell you. They'll be like, "Oh, you're crazy," or, "There's no such thing as ghosts." And I'm like, "Well, why can't you just have a bit of an open mind?" And I've had lots of conversations with people who are 100% skeptics. And I'm like, "Hey, I'm not going to sit here and tell you all the reasons why I do believe that there's more to be explored and that there's more out there. I'm just going to wait till you have your own experience that you can't quite explain and then we'll chat."
Sometimes they don't ever have those experiences.
No.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Some people don't, no matter what they did have, they're still not going to accept it. And I think having the open mind is the truly the answer there. And too many people don't. You've got to have an open mind, which means you're also willing to follow the evidence. Sometimes the evidence says it's not there.
Right.
Now speaking of evidence, what to you is convincing evidence?
Hmm. I've had some that really stick out in my brain. Things that I really, after I've mulled it over, I think about things way too much. So after I've mulled it over probably hundreds of times in my brain and I still can't quite figure it out, or it's still very strange to me, is when I'm like, okay, that was really interesting. And that's captivating me right now. So some of the things that have happened to me that have been very captivating is for a very long time. I wished that I could see this, quote unquote ghost, that like white misty figure. And it wasn't until very recently that I saw it. And it was just for a very flash second. It was right in front of me. And I couldn't believe the amount of detail that I saw in this misty figure. I've heard of other people talking about it. I've heard other people being able to tell me that, they saw this ghost of a woman standing on a stairwell that was about, 10 to 15 feet away from her. And she could see the lace detail on her dress. And I was like, that is so convincing to me. Like, I do not doubt for 1 second that you're telling a lie. Like, I can tell that you saw that. And so this one instance that I had recently, it was an elderly lady and she had this, when older ladies get their hair permed and they've got those
Mhm.
really tight little ringlets and they haven't brushed it through yet. I could see the perfect curls and I could see all the different variations of gray colors through her hair. And I was like, this is so fascinating to me.
Mhm.
Um, and then another thing that's kind of really stuck out in my mind are shadow people. I mean,
Mhm.
often if you're in a dark space or your eyes are adjusting, you see like little, things that are the corner of your eye, and people call those shadow people. But until I saw one that was 6 feet away from me, I wasn't convinced. But then I saw one, and then I saw them again. And then I saw them again in different
Mm.
spaces. And I'm like, okay, that's really compelling to me.
Did anybody else see them?
Um, thinking about the 3 times that I've absolutely seen shadow people, the first one, yes, 2 of my
Okay.
friends, my husband and my friend actually were there, and he's a skeptic.
Mhm.
So we all collectively saw them. And the second time, no, it was just me, but that's when it was super up close and personal, and it terrified me. The camera that was rolling, because we were filming this one TV series, it was pointed at an angle on the stairwell that just missed where I saw it, and so we went back,
The way it
looked at the
always
footage.
happens.
I know.
It's
I
the way it
mean, you
always
see
happens.
how terrified I am in the situation because 'cause I'm running, I'm panting, I'm freaking out. And then the third instance was recently in Ohio, and, both myself and my other teammate, Chelsea, she was the one that first caught it down at the end of the hallway, and I was like, "Oh, what are you
Mhm.
seeing? I wanna see this too." And she's like, "Just be patient, you're gonna see it." And sure enough, I saw it, and then her partner, he was like, "Well, I wanna see it." We all had cameras pointing down to the end of the hallway too, and he couldn't see it. But then when he went to go back and look at the footage to compile the episode, you see it in the episode, you see it on the footage, it's
See, you got
amazing.
it on film.
Yeah,
See, that's the problem. If you and being a cop, an old cop, if you don't have it documented, it didn't exist.
I know.
That's just the way it is, and that's unfortunately a very, very, and the biggest problem we have in this field. So often you don't get it. So how do you explain to somebody, you saw it, you saw the tight curls in this apparition's hair, but you've got no proof? Is it evidence?
Probably to most people, no. But, it's a memory for me. It's something that I believe legitimately happened,
Well, and Kim, and this is just my philosophy. You cannot say that that this phenomenon does not exist. It's occurred over too many millenniums. It's occurred to too many people of every social economic level, every culture, every race of people have all had experiences. It's got to be something. It's
right?
got to be something. Now, you talk about your evidence. Do you guys collect it? And do you use it to and do you compare it to other investigations for similarities?
No. A lot of this footage isn't my own.
Mhm.
So I haven't had the opportunity to do that. However, I've been documenting all of my investigations, at least for the past 3 or 4 years. Just writing things down, my own experiences, also with dreams. I've been ever since my grandmother had passed away. I've had um, some, probably a handful of really profound dreams about other people's loved ones that are close to me that I feel have a message to give to them. So I've compiled all those because as soon as I wake up, it feels different. It's just like I watched a movie 6 times over.
Sure.
Um, and then I've also had some experiences with dreams before I go into an investigation, and I don't know if it's like the spirits of the house that are like, "Hey, we know you're coming." Um, but I have had a couple of instances that have been documented on television of me describing what my dream looked like and who was in the dream. And then I've had people who've watched the episode reach out to me and say, "Hey, my grandfather grew up in that house and you described him perfectly." I'm like, "Okay, that's pretty cool." So I don't have sort of like a big filing cabinet of evidence, but it's really not a bad idea.
Well, it's the only way that we're going to be able to prove the existence of someday. Now, some folks do this to get the thrill, to have the fun. Some folks do it for the research angle of it, to try and solve this mystery that's been with us since mankind began.
Yeah.
And unless we collect that evidence and keep it and compare it, there's not a whole lot. It doesn't help us. We don't move forward. Would you agree? So something to
I
think
would
about.
agree. There's often times where I'm like, maybe I should write a book. I don't know how else to really compile all this evidence. I guess a lot of it is just hearsay, if I don't have like video footage or anything, but maybe I'll get on that.
Well, but the hearsay is good. But and if 2 or 3 people saw it or 2 or 3 people over the same amount of time, have seen the same thing, documenting is helpful. I One of the things I'm getting at here is also the historical angle of it. Ladies standing there wearing a specific looking gown with tight curls in her hair. Maybe there's a photograph of a woman that looks like that in a history book, and that history book gives you her name and her background history. That is something that can be used as at least a circumstantial evidence, if nothing else.
Absolutely. I don't feel
So,
like I would ever have the opportunity to sleep though, because I'm one of those people that if you put me on a rabbit hole, I'm going down and I'm not going to surface for a long time.
well, I think, yeah, unfortunately, I think that's what it's going to take, because that kind of work is what we're going to need to get ourselves to the next level. Otherwise, we're going to just be doing the same thing over and over again, and it's just going to be like on a treadmill. We're not going to be moving anywhere.
That's
So,
true.
just a thought. So, the evidence is there is really important. Now, you talk about yourself being a little sensitive. I am as sensitive as this computer, or the desk I'm sitting at. I'm an old cop. I need hard evidence, although I do have an open mind. So I'm continuing out there looking. How do you feel about mediums overall in the use of in paranormal investigations?
I think it's certainly fascinating, and I think there's evidence of it actually working. And I probably would not have felt that way until I had these dreams and I had these messages and I had these things that these people who had passed tell me about them in their lives
Mhm,
that I shouldn't know. There was one circumstance where somebody who lived across the street from me, their son had completed suicide. And he came to me in a dream about 2 or 3 months later. And I was able to tell things to the mother about this dream and the messages that he had. And when I was done, she looked at me and she's like, "You've told me things that only me, you, and the coroner know." So
wow.
for me having that my own experience, I definitely think there's some credibility to it.
Good.
And
Well, hold that thought for just a
yeah.
second, because we're up on our break again. So,
Okay.
hey, we got lots to talk about, folks. So stay with us. We'll be back right after these messages here on Paranormal Stakeout. Be right back. And we are back on Paranormal Stakeout with my guest tonight, Kim Mosier. Kim, great conversation so far. Very, very interesting. The places that you've been, the things that you've done. Uh, Tell me, have you, in all your work, and you started off a little later in life than I didn't have experiences as a kid either. Mine were as an adult, and it started in the St. Augustine Lighthouse. Well, one of the early ones is St. Augustine Lighthouse. But in all the places that you've gone now, the folks that you've talked to, the shows that you've done, have you run across any fakes, charlatans, scammers?
Yeah.
How often?
um probably only once, to be honest with you. I'm sure because of your background, you have a very keen sense of understanding if somebody's lying or understanding, their personality pretty quickly. And I felt that way the moment I met this person. And then as I continue to work with them, I don't want to give too much away, but as I continue
Yeah.
to work with them, I was just like, I can see that this is an anxiety issue. Like this is not you feeling or
Uh,
tapping into something. This is you being anxious. Like you start to see the knee jitters, you start to
mhm.
see a lot of different things. And
But is
yeah,
that a fake, or is that somebody that is just misinterpreting their emotions?
I
And
think it's a bit of both.
maybe they're over exaggerating a little bit. How
Yeah.
about have you encountered anybody who has flat out fabricated something in order to get on a TV show?
I don't know that anybody's fabricated to be on a TV show. Certainly not in any of my circumstances, like
Mm,
the show that I was on for
mhm.
6 seasons. Like, there was instances where somebody said something that was kind of like interesting to sort of close out a segment and the camera wasn't rolling. So we were like, "Oh, darn. Can you just say that thing again? Because that was a cool little
Well,
hook." But it wasn't like there was no
yeah.
like evidence or anybody claiming anything. There was none of that.
Okay, that's interesting because that seems to be one of the new topics of discussion on YouTube in particular is debunking some of the ghost shows out there. Some of the ones,
Mm.
some of them are some of the ones that got us interested early on. And
Yeah.
you got to wonder now, I think you'll agree with me, especially on broadcast TV. You don't have a lot of excitement and enough people aren't watching, the show's not making money. That can lead to issues. And I think that suggestion has been made at times over the years. YouTube, I think, is probably a little bit different. But do you think that instances where people are questioning the authenticity, the integrity of investigators on shows, how bad does it hurt us?
Um, I think some of it's valid. I definitely think some of it's
Oh yeah.
valid. Um, which is unfortunate because we're out there looking for truth. I mean, the people who are really passionate about it may not even be the best TV personality. So,
Mhm.
they're not getting the right representation out there. There's other, TV shows out there that maybe do fake things. Maybe there's, producers behind the scene, especially if there's an investigation or sorry, especially if there's an interview with somebody who's had a firsthand account. They say, "Hey, my house is haunted." I definitely believe that there's producers back there that are like, "Okay, now make sure that this is good television. So we're going to
Make
put you
sure it's
in this
haunted.
state that you're
Mhm.
emotionally distressed, and you're going to make this really interesting." I think that can happen.
Mhm.
Um, I'm hoping that there's no shows out there that are putting false evidence out there. I definitely think there's certain circumstances where, like, I can look at a show and I'm like, uh,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
that's pushing it a little bit.
Mhm.
Just embellished, we'll say. Sure, they caught that EVP, but did they embellish it a little bit? Maybe.
Yeah, well, and of course, cleaning it up a little bit so it's a little bit clearer. I
Mhm.
get that. But actually fabricating it, and I guess what I'm getting at is people are people. Humans are humans. Humans do what's in the best interest of humans so often. I'm just calling it like it is. And I can see where that can cause issues, especially like I said on broadcast TV where they need to have audiences.
Yeah.
Um, but how do we combat that? I mean, in my opinion, TV shows helped bring this to the forefront, which made it a more common topic of discussion and made more people willing to discuss it. So I think it helped in that sense. But how do we keep the phonies, the fakes, the producers that want to make sure the show gets enough rating, whatever the reason? How do we keep that from happening so that folks watching these programs can feel comfortable that what they're seeing is what they get? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I guess there's two things that I would like to talk about in regards to that. One is that I kind of fear for where the paranormal television series are going right now because in my opinion there's been some really great shows out there like
Mhm.
Destination Fear. You have this whole adventure, they're going to abandoned buildings, they've got a really great dynamic, and then the next thing you know their show's canceled, and it's like, well, they were probably one of the most popular shows out there, so why are they canceled? And then there's sort of whispers about some other paranormal shows that have been around for a long time that are having troubles getting reactivated for a new season. Um, and I know that there's been a lot of people talking about there's sort of just like a web-based show, I guess.
Mhm.
So like a show where there's nobody going in and investigating. It's all just kind of hearsay. There's recreations. It's just more or less storytelling. And
Mhm.
probably because those have a lower budget, they're the ones that are getting the green light from the larger
Oh,
networks. So
okay.
that's what makes me anxious about the future of the television series right now. Um, but I think one very interesting way that we could maybe get into something that is a little bit more evidence based, like you had said, maybe backing up some evidence, doing some very interesting sort of scientific methods with investigators that are willing to do so. But,
Absolutely.
going into like different frequencies, doing things like what they did in the Stargate project, where, they're monitoring people who have the ability to view things in a different room or a different space altogether. Some
Remote
sort of like
viewers, sure.
laboratory sort of investigations, I think would be incredible.
Well, see, and I think you actually have an incredible opportunity. You're filming everything with quality production type of equipment. Keeping that, examining it, going over it, and then using what you find to compare to other investigations might provide a lot of answers.
Mm,
And I think you guys have an excellent opportunity to do something like that, just based upon what you have going for you in production. Make sense?
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So something to think about there, because evidence is where it's at, and that's how we're going to find the answers either way.
Yeah.
So what do you think this all is? What i- what what are paranormal experiences? What is the other side? What is Kim Mosier's philosophy about ghosts?
I think it changes. I think it changes often. I think the more I know, it's like knowledge is power, right? So the more I know, I'm like, maybe I thought about that earlier, but now I've got this broader knowledge. So I think that it's kind of simplistic when it comes down to it. If you want to think that we are all energy, like where does that energy go? And then you look at how small Earth is in this massive universe. It's like, yeah, we're the dust underneath somebody's rug right now. Like, and we're experiencing all these things, and we have all these feelings, and it's. I think there's a certain element that we're not supposed to know. Um, but I also think that we just have not tapped into everything that we can know. So I think it's a world of possibilities out there. I think it all has to do with energy.
Where do you think we
And
go? Where do you think we go?
um I want to think that we go to like a heaven of some sort.
Mm.
I was brought up Christian. I still have some Christian beliefs, but I also kind of feel like I've adapted my own sort of spiritual slash religion and outlook on things. So I want to believe that there's no time, there's no space, that once we leave this body and our energy goes elsewhere, we have the ability to be in two or three different places at different times. I feel like our life here is nothing but a learning experience. Um, yeah, I just, I there's so much. There's so much. I can't even like
Well,
really put a pinhead on that for you.
and actually, I put you in a bad spot because nobody knows what this is. Anybody that
No.
tells you they know exactly what a ghost is are fooling themselves. This is my opinion, because we don't know the answers. Is it us? Is it Einstein's general theory of relativity that talks about dimensions? Is it the
Mm.
power of our own brain? What is it? Is it a collective conscious? We don't know. And I think your answer is about as good as it's going to get, because nobody knows for sure
No.
what the heck this is. Um, where do you think the future holds? Where do you think we need to go from here?
I don't know. I don't even know what I'm gonna wear tomorrow. I have no idea. I really don't. I feel like, where I thought we were going with the paranormal community and the television series that were out there that were really compelling and really interesting and really fun to watch and great personalities and good evidence are disappearing. So I don't know what happened. Maybe it all
Are
comes
they
down to
real?
money, but
Money, but are they real?
it's a great question.
And I think that's a question a lot of folks ask and would like answers to. I mean, a lot of folks would like to believe certain shows are real, but are they? And is that what's creating part of the problem? Because, like I said, nobody knows exactly what this phenomenon is. Where do you see yourself in 5 years with this?
I don't know. 5 years ago, I never expected to be in this situation. So I would love to have a television series that I have a larger hand in, selecting my team members, and going a little bit deeper with the historical part of investigations. I would love to be a
Exper-
part of something like that.
Experiments and evidence
Hmm.
and collection of evidence, real important. I'll just toss that to you as you create this show for the future, because that's where it's going to be at. But we're about ready to take our last break, and when we come back, I want to hear about some of these places that you went to. I want to hear about your most exciting experience and all those good things. So, folks, uh, stay tuned. We got one more timeout, and then we'll be back here on Paranormal Stakeout. See you in a couple minutes. And welcome back to Paranormal Stakeout with my guest tonight, Kim Mosier. Just want to remind everybody, if you want to learn a little bit more about me and my team, you can go to paranormalfbi.com or indianriverhauntings.com, where you can see not only the investigations that we do, but some of the historical tours that we do for folks. Check us also out on YouTube. It's at Indian River Hauntings 2341. And check my show out, all my other shows at paranormalstakeout.org. I would be remiss if I did not mention all the great programming on the X Zone Radio and TV broadcast network. Check us out at xzoneradiotv.net. You'll see all the great shows there. If you want to really delve into all sides of the paranormal, check out the X Zone Radio and TV broadcast network for some great shows. Now, Kim, tell us a little bit about your podcast and where they can find you and how folks can check in with you.
Yeah. So my old podcast was Booze and Bourbon, which you can still find on Spotify and YouTube. And then more recently, I've kind of been expanding on my Instagram as well as my own YouTube channel, doing weekly 5 minute short information sessions on the paranormal. So you can find that on Instagram, which is Kim's Darker Side. And my YouTube channel is also named the same, Kim's Darker Side.
Okay. I don't know if I want to see your darker side. That might be scary, but okay. And your website, kimmosier .info.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, okay, terrific. So check those out, folks. Interesting podcast. Booze and Bourbon. How did you come up with that one?
Yeah. So my best friend and I, we really wanted to start a podcast. We wanted to start a hobby just to kind of escape the everyday 9 to 5. And so we wanted to come up with something that had obviously reminiscent of being a paranormal based show. So that's where the booze came in. But we also loved getting together and just drinking wine or drinking whiskey. So my husband has been collecting bourbon for quite some time. And it wasn't
Oh,
until about 10 years ago that I was like, oh, I'm onto this. I see why you like it so much. So we would often pair a different bourbon with a ghost story or a ghost theme.
got it. Got it. So you've been investigating pretty regularly since 2018, Rob. Would that be
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You've gone to some interesting spots. Tell us, what was your most significant experience and where was it?
Hmm. Well, as time goes on, you think you've hit the pinnacle of having the scariest thing happen to you, but then you go to a more recent place and you're like, "Oh, that was terrifying." And I remember exactly how I felt in that moment. So about a month ago now, we were in New York and we went to this very sort of unassuming bed and breakfast, did a little bit of research about it on our way there. It's a place called Greystone Manor. And just looks like kind of a regular but beautiful old house. And so we get there. The place is owned by a psychic medium. She's lovely. She's been on a bunch of television series. And she starts telling us a little bit of the history of the house and starts showing us evidence that she had on her phone, which automatically made me a little bit terrified because we're seeing all this evidence of people getting scratched or bitten. And she has this beautiful sense of decor. So she has all this old taxidermy and just like every room was so well put together and in items with that were in line with the period of the house. So it looked beautiful. And I thought maybe looks can be deceiving. Like this kind of feels like the Disney haunted house. This is amazing.
Uh,
And so we go and we do our investigation. We get some pretty typical stuff. So it's Lamar and Chelsea and Chelsea's very much a medium. I often will look to her and I'll be like, "Did you see that in the corner?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, this did you see that shadow? Like, she backs me up. It's great.
Mhm.
So we're in this one particular room that she was very fond of, and she's saying, like, I'm feeling like there's a lot of power here. I'm feeling like some anger. I'm feeling all of these things. And I was like, okay, is this power your own? Like, is this a power that you feel like you need to have it, you want to have it? And she's like, I feel like something is putting their power into me. And I'm like, that's interesting. Haven't really heard of that before or seen it happen in an investigation. So that's really interesting. And then she's like, you know what? My back hurts. And I'm like, okay, let's get out of this room. So we get out of the room and she's like, no, like it really hurts. And so I said, well, can we look at your back? And so we did. We lifted up the back of her shirt and there was a giant welted scratch, like bright, bright red in the shape of a hook. And it was probably, I don't know, 8 to 10 inches long on her
Wow.
back. And I pressed on it and it was like hot, like so hot to the touch. And I mean, I've been investigating with other people before who have said like, "Oh, I feel like something scratched me on my wrist." And I look at it and I'm like, "Well, that was just from your own nail. Like, come on." I kind of get that little naysayer
Yep.
in me. But this was something that I had never encountered before. I mean, I was watching her. I was like 3 feet away from her in that room the whole time, and there is no way that she could have inflicted something like that on her own back. It was just terrifying, and that's when we decided we needed to leave, and that was the first time that I have ever left, a place during an investigation.
Wow. 2 things I'm gonna say. First of all, did you take a picture of it?
Of course we did.
Outstanding. That's what I like to hear. Okay.
Yeah.
Second thing is a question about some of the famous, and you've been to Waverly Hills, the Conjuring House.
Mhm.
Do you think sometimes those big name places sometimes get worn out, maybe overfished, as some of us fishermen would say, too many fish caught out of the pond, or maybe it's just tired of having people come in there?
Yeah, I kinda wondered that myself when I went to the Lizzy Borden house. I wasn't really expecting much, but we got some really interesting stuff that night, and I thought,
Okay,
"Okay, so this is not overplayed. This is not,
okay.
just a money grab. Like there is something actually here." Then when I went to Waverly Hills, also thought that there was a lot of interesting stuff going on there. I will say when I went to the Conjuring House, I had very little activity. And I didn't feel as scared as I thought I would be because, that was kind of the biggest thing on my bucket list to go to was the
Mm,
Conjuring House, especially after, the COVID outbreak and we couldn't get across the border and all I wanted to do was get across the border to go there. There was all
mhm.
this heightened excitement and then I got there and I was like, But I've talked to a lot of people who have gone to the Conjuring House and they said, "Oh no, you were just there on a bad day." Like, and I look back and there was just very recently an ownership change as well. So I
Mhm.
don't know if, there was just a certain mood in the house that wasn't quite the same, or if it was just an off night. Maybe there was lots of activity the night before.
Uh,
I don't know.
well, that's 2 huge issues. One thing that we all have to remember, that if there is somebody on the other side that does want to contact us, they're gonna do it on their time, not because we demand it.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
So sometimes, and it's like fishing, sometimes they're biting, sometimes they're not.
Mhm.
So you're not going to get something every time. But I wonder if sometimes these larger places, not so much that they are money grabs as it is just they're fished out. Like what's ever there is just, I don't want to deal with you guys. And then they're
Right.
quiet for a period of time. So I've often wondered about that. And certainly I have seen my fair share of spots that are hot numbers. Boy, everybody goes there, and when you really look at the evidence, there's not a whole lot there. So
Right.
I guess you could look at it for both angles. Once again, this is where historical research and in-depth investigation really, really does help there. Um, St. Augustine, it's kind of funny. I've been there a dozen times. 11 times, always had something happen. My entire team had the whole place to ourselves a year ago this month.
Oh, that
Almost
sounds
nothing.
exciting. Really?
Almost nothing, almost nothing.
Oh.
So, but once again, that happens. Now tell me about your, St. Augustine experience. What
Well, there was really nothing, honestly, there was really nothing compelling. I
Mhm,
think my mind just sort of went down this journey of imagining what it was like.
Mm.
And the story about the girl.
Right.
Um, so I
Actually,
think
2 of them.
it was more of a visual journey than really finding any compelling evidence.
Mhm. Yeah, that is a very compelling journey about of what happened there and the 2 little girls dying and whatnot.
Mm.
My older boy back this is 2010, which started it all for me there. We were in the lighthouse and heard the girls laughing.
Oh my
And
gosh.
well, what do I do as a cop? The first thing I'm doing, I'm looking for wires and speakers, figuring somebody is piping something in to enhance the place, but nope, there was nothing there. And this show's about you, so I won't go into all the things that have happened to me over the years there, but we've had some very compelling events occur on us there. But when we were there last January with my whole team, all the equipment set up, hardly anything. So
Ugh.
that's just ways that go.
But now you know
Oh,
you need to go back.
yeah, well, eventually it's just up the road, so we can definitely get back there. Lizzy Borden House.
Mhm,
There's a lot of folks that talk about what happens there.
mhm.
What's the most significant thing that happened to you with Lizzy Borden?
Um, we use the spirit box a lot,
Mm.
and it's a homemade spirit box that I use, and, the amount of times that acts came through on the radio, because technically, it's a radio, sweeping radio stations.
Right.
Um, I thought there's no way that there's this many radio stations talking about axes in like a 5-minute period. So that was kind of strange to me. And then my girlfriends, I was doing the Estes method, so I was under the headphones with my
Under
spirit box, and they had a device behind them on the bed in the murder room, and every single time we would ask a question or they would ask a question about, was Lizzie interfered with or was someone interfered with in the attic? Is there, allegations of abuse? And it would go off every single time. Um, and I went back and I compiled all the evidence, which you can see on my YouTube as well. But yeah, it was kind of startling. And I was like, well, if she is guilty, then maybe she had a good reason to do it. Maybe she couldn't escape her own traumatic life, and that was her best option. I don't know. But my friend was staying up in the attic and, her room was locked. She's terrified of the dark. So she left her light on up there. And as soon as we go up to investigate her room, the light's off. And she's like, well, that's weird. I left the light on. Then we go and we check the lamp, and there's nothing wrong with the lamp. The light bulb was screwed in, the lamp was plugged in. And so then we started asking, well, the gentleman of the house, I forget his name, Andrew Borden, maybe. He was very conservative with using electricity. So we were like, are you trying to conserve power if this is Andrew Borden? And the light would flicker. And then we all had issues with our cell phones at the same time. So the GoPros were shutting down, our cell phones that we were recording on were
Hard to
going black.
hard to argue with that one. Hard to argue with that. Well, unfortunately, Kim, our time has run out for tonight, but I do appreciate you being here. Some great stories. I want to wish you a lot of luck in your endeavors. Remember, collection of evidence. You've
Yes,
got that
yes.
opportunity
Thank
to
you
do
for that
it.
advice. I really appreciate it.
Well,
And thank you so much for having me on your show. It's been
it's
great.
Well, I've enjoyed it, and thanks again. We'll hope to see you again soon. And folks, that ends our show for tonight. I want to thank all of you for being here. Remember to give those kids a hug, man. They're our future, so you got to take care of our kids. So everybody take care, and we'll see you on the other side. Have a good night, folks.